my favorite ranter right now is that guy Tim Dillon.
Oh,
God,
I love
he's
Tim
so
Dillon.
fucking funny, dude.
Here's,
He just sits there by himself and just talks. And I've never found someone more entertaining that can just sit there by themselves and talk.
well, that's the thing. That's part of why I stopped doing the podcast, because I couldn't get guests, and again, talking about like unhealthy coping and like figuring out like how to, when I was a kid, I always thought there was just something wrong with my brain. Like my parents didn't know I was autistic because I was smart, so they just thought I was like a nerd. You know what I mean? They're like, he's just nerdy. So they put me in like every sport and club and group and stuff like that to force like socialization. So that's how I learned to socialize. I was like, you got to do it. Like,
Right.
throw your kid in the water. They got to learn to swim, you know? And so I learned my coping mechanisms with interaction and stuff like that. But the other part of that was like, I realized at a certain point in life, I was like, you can't just talk out loud to yourself. People will think you're weird. So that was always a part of my brain, was like, you can't talk out loud to yourself. People are going to know something's wrong with you. And now that I'm like doing comedy, I'm like, fuck, I have to talk out loud to myself.
You've been telling yourself the whole time not
or
to.
I'm going to starve.
Yeah.
Did your parents bring you around a lot of other kids when you were young, like toddler age?
My parents both coached little league sports.
Oh wow!
Like my dad coached baseball and football, and my mom coached cheerleading and softball, and my mom was like treasurer of like our small town youth league.
Okay, so they weren't like hermits, like hoarding you inside the house all the time.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like they made sure I got socialized. Like I said, they didn't know it was autism, but they just knew, I was an intelligent kid, so they just thought I was awkward because I was like a nerd. You know what I mean? Like this is gonna be a real like pocket protector type of kid, and we gotta keep him from getting bullied. Like we gotta teach him how to talk to kids.
Yeah.
Teach him a sport or a skill or something.
Right.
And so I just learned by exposure, like overexposure. Sink or swim.
Yeah, but I bet that does happen to a lot of people though, who have like parents who don't let them out of the house, parents who are lazy, you know what I mean, who don't try to socialize their kids or mix them in other environments. Kids like that could grow up fucked up. Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen that soft white underbelly guy, Mark Leda? He's a channel called Soft White Underbelly where he actually lives in downtown LA, and he has a studio right on Skid Row, and he just interviews all the homeless people, all the crackheads, all the hookers, all the gang members, and he's done probably a few thousand videos already, a few thousand interviews with people.
That sounds fucking cool.
Yeah, it's insane. And he said like the number one common denominator with all those people is their parents fucked them up when they were young. Just like lazy parents or parents who were just already addict. They just accidentally had kids and they were like, fuck, now this is a burden I have to deal with.
Yeah. Well, and also just think about how many like people like develop mental health issues, not even because of like purposefully or like intentionally bad parenting, or like think about the kids that like messed up because their parents were just trying their best, but they just didn't know like how much parenting techniques and like things like that, and like child psychology has changed, and like all the things we know about like spankings now cause these kinds of like mental health things, like just all of the stuff our parents didn't know,
right?
And like they were doing the best they could. You know what I mean? So like how do you fault someone for doing the best they could with the information they had at the time?
Yeah, but I don't think that's the issue, though.
No, I'm not saying it is. There are definitely parents that were just like neglectful, like irresponsible,
right.
Absentee, like all of those kind of things. And not to mention like abusive, violent, like all of those kinds of things definitely fuck you up. But that's what I'm saying. Like there's also that marginalized group of mental health issues it's not that their parents were any of those things. It's just that they didn't have the skills necessary to overcome those things.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, think about, like, and again, this, like, people who come from, like, poor and like, historically impoverished places, like, that triangle in Florida.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, think about the people who grow up out there with, like, parents who, it's not that they are trying to be absentee, but your dad's having to work 95 hours a week,
right.
and your mom has an underlying mental health issue that nobody knows about because you live in a place where you can't afford mental health services.
Right.
Yeah.
Think about all of those people.
Money is a huge thing, too, right?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Money, that's the whole, that's the whole thing, is like money is the primary like hindrance to most healthcare. Not even just specifically mental health care. Mental health care is already hard enough on its own to access just because it's so limited and there's such a stigma around it.
You know, in Denmark, they will, when you have a baby, they will pay you. They will pay you to have a babysitter for like the first 5 or 6 years.
They'll also issue you stipends to take like parenting courses and things like that.
Right,
And,
which is crazy.
But isn't that the way it should be?
It shouldn't be
you know
crazy.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
No,
I have to get
I
a
think
license
so.
to go on the road and drive because I could drastically change the course of someone's life.
Yeah.
Why do I not also have to have a license to raise 2 people and drastically
Right.
impact the course of their lives?
Yeah.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But it works in Denmark. Denmark's also, it's also a very small country. It's so much different than us.
Yeah. And I think that's the bigger thing is like when you have a smaller population, it's easier to pick up on outliers than when you have a large, massive population because you have to worry so much about that cluster.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like your outliers can't be your priority because by definition, you have to worry about the majority.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, having to like say that people would have to get a license to have kids, that's kind of crazy, huh? That's a crazy idea.
Not a license, but like, shouldn't there be some sort of requirement?
Take some classes or something.
Yeah.
Like, not saying a license, but like, if you're going to have a baby, you have to complete these things. You know what I mean? Like, you have to fill out all the paperwork at the hospital.
Right.
You know, you have to.
Yeah.
You have
You
to.
got to pay the bill.
You know, you at least like. And I'm not saying like there has to be a test, but at least like some sort of like, hey, I've completed the course materials. You know, like I have to a CNA in Florida, you know, a nursing assistant whose primary job is like patient hygiene and things like that, like to literally clean people and keep them hygienic. You have to complete like a certificate course. But you don't have to complete that same course when they hand you a new one.
Right, yeah.
Like you're telling me I have to complete a course to take care of like the oldest
Some
beater
old guy.
on the lot, but
Yeah.
a brand new one you'll just hand me
Just
with
give it.
no questions asked.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, but when it comes to like kids though, it's weird because it's like people's right to fucking have kids. You know what I mean? And if they refuse to do all that stuff, they refuse to be conscientious, or if they refuse to be responsible, I mean, you can't really like. There's
But
nothing
we
you can
do we do it now. Child protective services get called when parents like prove to be neglectful, and people in the court and the government take people's children away from them. So why is it not okay to install a preventative measure for that?
Yeah.
Why is it not okay to install another set of checks and balances to limit that? Like if we're talking about like protecting kids and that's what everyone talks about as such a priority, why are we not protecting them
From the start.
from the start?
Yeah.
Yeah, there needs to be more money that goes towards that kind of stuff.
That's what I'm saying. Even if it's not like a mandatory when you get to have a kid, even if it becomes like make it mandatory high school education.
Yeah.
Make early child education, child development, and things like that. Like make that a core curriculum part for schools.
Yeah.
Because like think about how high the teen pregnancy rate is.
I'm sure Florida's
You know,
is very high.
Yeah, Florida's is
like,
gonna be off the charts.
Something like 38% of high school graduates have a baby within the first year of graduating high school. So why are we not teaching them that then? Like why are we not updating what home economics is?